The forest was not dark tonight. It was deep. It was quiet. It was slow. Pines breathed like sleepy giants. The river curled its silver tail and hushed. Lanterns bloomed in cottage windows, soft as warm bread. Inside, a broom leaned where it always leaned. A ribbon waited on a peg. 7 tiny beds made a tiny sea of quilts. A kettle sighed. A song rested. Far beyond the trees, a mirror cooled in an empty room. Someone had asked it a hard question again. Someone did not like the answer again. Breath fogged glass, a wish sharpened to a point. On the path between mirror and cottage, footsteps counted stones. Old wood touched moss, a walking stick learned the way. Owls kept time. Crickets stitched minutes. Snow White stacked plates. She moved gently as if not to wake the night. She did not know the night was already awake. It listened at the door. It watched through the cracked latch of chance. An apple waited on a shelf. Not the apple, not yet. Just a bright red promise practicing how to shine. It dreamed of fingers. It dreamed of teeth. It dreamed of silence after sweetness. This story is about what really happened when that dream came true. It is not a story of shouting or hurry. It is a story that walks, breath by breath, through rooms of lantern light, past a bed of flowers that never wilt, past a cliff that remembers fear, and back to a glass where a star once paused to see itself. We will move gently tonight. We will listen for the soft things. We will follow a song that does not need a voice. If we go softly enough, we can hear the apple think. Chapter 1. Dusk in the deep forest. The forest breathes slow. Evening folds the hills like soft blankets. A blue hush settles between the pines. The river curls its silver tail and goes quiet. Lanterns blink awake in the little cottage. Warm light spills like honey on the path. Smoke rises in a thin, sleepy ribbon. The air smells of pine sap and bread. Moths kiss the window glass and drift. Owls trade soft questions in the dark. Crickets sew minutes together with needles of sound. Night is not heavy. Night is kind. Night walks barefoot here. Inside the cottage, a broom leans where it always leans. A kettle sighs on the hook above the fire. 7 tiny beds wait like boats at a gentle pier. Each pillow knows a name. Each quilt hums a small song. Boots dry near the hearth. Little hats hang like red bells on pegs. On the table, wooden bowls shine with a friendly gloss. A checked cloth keeps crumbs in a neat square. A ribbon waits on a nail, patient and bright. Snow White moves through the room like a lullaby. Her hands smooth the cloth. Her hands fold the towels. Her hands turn simple work into a prayer. She hums without thinking. The tune is soft and round. It sways like leaves in a mild wind. Her dress whispers when she walks. Her hair catches the light like a calm river. Her breathing is steady. The house breathes with her. Outside, a deer pauses at the edge of the clearing. It lifts its head and listens. Something about the night feels different. Not dangerous, just important. A robin hops along the sill. It taps the glass, testing the world. A fox slips across the path and vanishes. A wind brushes the moss and slows down. Even the clouds seem to move on tiptoe. The dwarfs' laughter drifts from far between the trees. It arrives a heartbeat late. The forest holds the sound and gives it back gently. Footsteps fade. Echoes linger. The rhythm of work is almost done. The rhythm of rest is beginning. Snow White sets 7 plates. She counts them under her breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She smiles at the number. It always feels complete. She places a small slice of bread on each one. She adds a dab of jam like a red moon. She wipes a crumb with the tip of her finger and laughs. Small order, small joy. On a shelf, a bowl of apples gleams like little suns. She lifts one and polishes it with the corner of her apron. Red becomes redder. The shine holds her face for a moment. Her reflection blurs, then focuses, then slips. She thinks of the market. She thinks of the kind old baker. She thinks of the rules the dwarfs made. Do not open the door to strangers. Keep the latch on the window. Sing if you are afraid. She nodded when they told her. She meant it. She means it now. She opens the window a finger's width. Cool air touches her cheek. Pine. Water. Distant stone. A star is already awake in the pale sky. It looks close enough to touch. She closes the window softly and sets the latch. It clicks like a promise. She takes the ribbon from the peg. She turns it in her hands. Blue. Bright. Calm. She ties her hair back with slow fingers. The knot is neat and sure. She looks at herself in the kettle's curved shine. The metal mirror makes her older. It makes her brave. She lifts her chin and smiles. The kettle smiles back. The door creaks a little in the evening breeze. She checks the latch. Solid. She presses her palm to the wood. It is warm from the day. It knows many hands. It keeps many secrets. The first dwarf peeks in with a grin as wide as a shovel. He shakes rain from his hat, though the sky is dry. Another bumps his shoulder and scolds him for tracks. Another brings a flower he pretends he did not pick. They wash. They joke. They tell small stories with big gestures. The room fills with gentle thunder of tiny boots. Dinner is a happy clatter of spoons. Murmurs pile up like quilts. They thank her for the bread. They tease each other for crumbs. Laughter sits at the head of the table and winks. After the meal, they stack plates like towers. They sweep with a teamwork that looks like dance. They announce the rules again, but in a playful way. Safety disguised as a song. Do not open the door. Keep the windows shut. Promise, promise, promise. She promises. Her voice is clear and light. They believe her. The forest listens too. When the sky is fully dark, they yawn like little lions. They tumble into beds as if diving into ponds. Hats on pegs, boots by the fire. Snores begin like far drums in friendly hills. Snow White tucks quilts up to chins. She kisses air above each brow. She snuffs the lanterns one by one. The room becomes a lake of moonlight and shadow. The kettle gives one last happy sigh. She sits by the window and watches the world go soft. She lays her cheek on her folded arms. Her eyelids grow heavy but do not fall. She is listening. To what? She does not know. Perhaps to the night. Perhaps to a thought the night is thinking. The apple bowl glows faintly in the dim. Red holds light the way hearts hold secrets. The fruit looks patient. It looks sure. Snow White smiles and closes her eyes for a breath or two. Her lashes leave faint lines on her skin when she opens them again. She hums a tiny thread of song. The thread floats and catches on the rafters. It stays there safe, like a wish. The forest takes a long breath. It sends it through the window seam. It touches the bowls and plates. It quivers the ribbon tail in her hair. It moves a story closer to its beginning. Out on the path, something tests the stones. A walking stick taps like a slow clock. The night hears it first, then the door, then the girl with the bright, brave heart. On the path, a shadow lengthens and shortens with the lantern's sway. It moves like age and purpose. It pauses. It listens. It counts the breaths inside the cottage. It nods to itself and continues. The sound of the stick is soft, but it is sure. Tap, tap, tap. Even the owl stops asking questions. Snow White lifts her head. She feels a small change in the air. She does not call it danger. She does not know the word that fits. It feels like a page turning somewhere in the woods. It feels like the last pearl of a necklace finding its clasp. She stands. She smooths her skirt. She checks the latch again. Click. I promise, yes. But promises are doors too. They open for kindness. They open for need. She takes one apple from the bowl and sets it near the window. Red becomes a lighthouse for her thoughts. She listens. Tap, tap, tap. Closer now. The sound is old and polite. The sound asks a question with each touch. May I? May I? May I? She looks back at these 7 sleeping shapes. She smiles at their little mountains of breathing. She will keep them safe. She will keep her promise. She will also be kind. Her hands rest on the sill. Her forehead rests on the cool pane. Her breath fogs a small cloud that blooms and fades. Her reflection hovers in the glass. It looks like someone who will choose carefully. Night gathers a little tighter around the cottage. It brings all its listeners close. The deer, the robin, the fox, the wind, the stars. Even the river slows to hear. A stick finds the last stone before the step. It taps once more and stops. Silence stands on the threshold with folded hands. The door feels the weight of a knock before it comes. The wood prepares to carry the sound. The latch prepares to stand still. Snow White prepares to be brave. On the table, the ribbon tail trembles. On the shelf, the apples breathe their red breath. On the bed, the dwarfs turn in sleep as if answering a far question. The cottage holds itself very carefully. The forest holds the cottage. The night holds the forest. Everything waits with soft patience. A knuckle rises. A hand opens. A story leans forward. The knock is not yet here, but it is close enough to hear with your heart. Listen, listen, listen. On the path, a walking stick tests the stones. Chapter 2. The Queen's Last Disguise. In a cold room far from the cottage, a mirror stands like a deep lake. Candles burn low and small, like thoughts at the edge of sleep. The air smells of iron and old perfume. Velvet hangs heavy on the walls. Silence has a sharp spine here. A woman stands before the glass. Her crown bites her brow like a winter branch. Her eyes are dark and bright at once. She has asked the same question many times. She has heard the same wound many times. She asks again as if the answer might change. It does not change. It never changes. The answer slides across the glass like thin ice. It cracks something behind her smile. Her breath makes a cloud on the mirror. For a moment, her face is hidden by her own weather. She wipes the fog away with a careful finger. The finger shakes, but only a little. She stands taller. She narrows her gaze. She decides that tonight the world will bend. She moves to a table lined with bottles that do not clink. She takes down a small jar that holds a flower for midnight. She takes a pinch of black root that tastes like sleep. She uncorks a vial of dew caught from a dreamer's eyelash. She lifts a tear that turned to crystal on a widow's cheek. She thinks of the words she learned when she was young and colder. She whispers them. The room listens with its bones. A bowl waits like a moon on a tripod. She pours. She stirs. The liquid stops being water and becomes a promise. Not death. Not harm. A lock. A door that shuts from the inside. A dream that will not end until the world is kind to it. On a silver plate rests a fruit as red as a heartbeat. Its skin shines like a new idea. It is heavy for its size. It has learned to carry meaning. The woman touches it with 2 fingers. She speaks to it without words. She promises it a purpose. It answers by gleaming. She dips a needle into the dark and lifts a single drop. She presses the drop into the apple's secret places. Not much. Enough. The fruit drinks the night and keeps its light on the skin. It looks innocent. It looks perfect. Perfection can be a mask. Perfection can be a bell over a sleeping bird. The mirror says nothing now. It has done enough harm for one night. The woman does not look at it. She goes to a chest and opens it with a key warm from her palm. Inside lie disguises that smell like old roads, wool that remembers rain, shoes that remember stones, a shawl that remembers hands. She chooses the oldest shape she owns. She lets it climb over her like ivy. She bends her back and widens her waist. She draws lines with soot where life has drawn none. She finds a voice that wobbles and smiles with missing teeth she does not have. She looks in a small hand mirror and sees a face the world trusts. A face that begs for kindness. A face that can ask for doors. She takes the apple in a basket. She hides it under humble things. Thread, ribbons, tin thimbles, combs with missing teeth, a needle case that clacks. She arranges them like a story that has no sharp corners. She practices her first line out loud. Just an old woman. Just a knock. Just a little help on a long road. She stops at the great door and listens to the castle breathe. It is slow and stale. She steps into the corridor where footsteps echo like scoldings. She moves through halls she has ruled with her chin high. Tonight her chin is tucked. Tonight she is smaller. Tonight she carries a red star in a wicker sky. She passes the mirror one last time and does not ask. She does not bow. She does not throw a glance like a knife. She keeps her eyes on the floor. The mirror watches her go with a surface like winter. It shows the room a single, quick flicker of a crown. Then it shows nothing at all. Outside, the night is softer than the room. The air feels clean. The stars feel honest. She pulls her shawl tight and hides her hands that gleam with rings. She hides her pride in the basket under thread and tin. Her shoes find the path because they have walked it in dreams. She steps into the trees. The forest does not like her, but it is polite. It opens itself because it opens for everyone. It lets her pass and whispers warnings to the bark. The owls go quiet. The foxes vanish into black. The wind carries the basket's tiny clack and shakes its head. The apple hums to itself in a secret key. She rehearses her kindness. She rehearses her cough. She rehearses the way she will almost drop the basket. She rehearses the way she will ask for water. She rehearses the way she will offer something in return. A gift for a girl who gives gifts to the world. A kindness for a kind heart. A trap that looks like help. She feels the weight of the apple. It is the weight of a plan made long ago. It is the weight of a mirror's answer she could not bear. She carries it as if it were nothing. She carries it as if it were everything. She finds the edge of the clearing. She sees the glow in the cottage window. It looks like safety. It looks like home. It looks like a place she does not deserve to enter, and yet she will. She will stand at the door and make her voice small. She will ask kindness to open its hands. The path is a ribbon laid between shadows. Her stick taps a polite rhythm. Her breath makes small clouds that fall and vanish. She lifts her chin just enough to see the latch. She smiles without warmth and steps into the trees. Chapter 3. What the Huntsman Couldn't Carry. Elsewhere, under the same sky, a man walks with his head low. His hands are empty and heavy at once. His boots know this ground too well. He is a huntsman by trade. He is a keeper of forest by heart. Tonight both parts of him are tired. He remembers a clearing like a held breath. He remembers a girl with eyes full of mourning. He remembers a command that tasted like cold iron. Bring me proof. Bring me a heart. He remembers lifting a knife that did not want to rise. He remembers lowering it because his own heart rose first. He remembers mercy winning. He remembers the world letting him choose. He has killed for meat. He has killed to keep wolves from doors. He has killed to keep balance for the deer. He has never killed to empty a mirror. He has never killed to make a crown feel taller. He could not do it. His hands refused. His breath refused. His name refused. He ran that day, but not away. He ran toward a different duty. He ran toward a cottage because he had heard of a girl there. He had heard of 7 men with small boots and big hearts. He had heard of laughter in a house that never locked out light. He found the place and left what he could. Warnings in the shape of footprints around the door. Warnings in the shape of branches leaned against a window. Warnings in the shape of a rabbit. He did not snare and let go there as a sign. He is not a poet. He hoped they would read his scattered words. He thinks of the Queen's eyes when he returned without proof. He thinks of how they did not blink. He thinks of the smile that was not a smile. He thinks of the way cold moves without wind. He tells himself the forest will protect the girl. He tells himself the dwarfs will. He tells himself he will if he must. He walks with his head low because guilt is a heavy coat. He cannot take it off yet. He cannot wear it forever. He needs the night to forgive him. The night is trying. It sends him a fox to follow him to safety. It sends him a path that curves away from the cottage without his consent. Sometimes the forest saves you by refusing your plan. He stops at a stream and kneels. He cups water in his palms and sees his face in the shaking bowl. It looks older than last year. It looks kinder than yesterday. He drinks. He breathes. He promises the air he will do more if the air will let him. He stands and listens with all the parts of his body that are not ears. He hears rain a long way off, learning how to be rain. He hears an owl write a little alphabet in the dark. He hears a far tapping that does not belong to water or bird. Tap, 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 tap. It sounds like a question wearing a shoe. He looks toward the cottage. His feet want to run. The fox nudges his boot the other way. Not a command, a plea. Trust the trees. Trust the small people with brave hands. Trust the girl who sings like a lantern. He does not like it. He knows it is right. He moves to a tree that has seen 100 winters and 1,000 nests. He presses his forehead to the bark. He tells the tree what he cannot tell a man. Keep her. Keep them. Keep me worth keeping. The tree says nothing with the words. It presses its cold into his skin until his thoughts slow and settle. Sometimes silence is an answer. He turns away and leaves the paths that lead to doors. He chooses the ways that lead to cliffs and roots. He chooses the ways that keep him from breaking his own promise. He will circle. He will watch from edges. He will be near enough to help and far enough not to bring danger with his shadow. He believes in this plan the way you believe in a bridge in fog. You cannot see it. You try anyway. He thinks of the little men with their hats like red berries. He thinks of their rules, sensible and sweet. He thinks of the girl promising. He thinks of promises. He knows promises are strong until love knocks against them with open hands. He knows kindness unbuttons caution with a smile. He hopes the door is stubborn. He hopes the window is wise. He hopes hope is enough. Rain begins the way music begins, with almost nothing. A brush on a drum, a whisper on a leaf, then more, then more. The smell of wet dirt becomes the smell of memory. The huntsman lifts his face and lets it wash him. He has done what he could do. He has not done enough. He will never be sure. He remembers the queen's voice when she was still new to power. It sounded like a bright coin struck on stone. He remembers how it changed as the years stacked up. It became a knife that wanted to cut everything into the shape of the mirror. He could not be that knife. He would rather be a spoon. He would rather feed the world than carve it. He rests under a huge pine and counts the drips from one needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is always a comfort. 7 is an old friend. He closes his eyes and lets the number hold him up. He dreams without sleeping. He sees a cottage full of light. He sees a bowl of apples that glow like embers under ash. He sees a hand reach for a latch with generosity. He sees another hand reach for a basket with a practiced tremble. He opens his eyes before the hands meet. He cannot stop what is coming from here. He can only move close enough to be ready. He can only trust the forest to do its old work, to bend danger until it trips on its own feet. He stands and takes one step, then another, then another. His boots make small sounds and small prints. He keeps to shadows that keep to him. He breathes like someone who is praying without words. He feels the fox at his heel. He feels the tree at his back. He feels the night at his side. He is not alone even as he is alone. He will be a witness if he cannot be a shield. He will be a shield if fate gives him the chance. He will not leave the edge of the story again. He will not let fear stand by itself in a room. He will stand beside it and make it smaller by half. He hears the tapping again, closer now. He thinks of knitting. He thinks of needles. He thinks of how a stitch becomes a sweater over time. He thinks of how a sound becomes a moment when it is near enough to touch. He does not run. He walks, careful and sure. He keeps his breath soft as moss. The rain thickens like soup. The path becomes a slower path. The world narrows to what you can reach with your hand. He reaches for a branch and pulls it down to look beyond. He sees the clearing become a bowl of dark sugar. He sees the cottage like a candle in a jar. He sees a small figure at the door inside. He sees a smaller figure outside, hunched and patient. He does not shout. He swallows his shout and saves it. He saves it for when it will matter more. He moves through the trees the way a thought moves across a careful mind. Quiet, quick, kind. He places his feet where roots will forgive them. He places his hands where a bark will not complain. He arrives near enough to hear without being seen. He hears the old voice. He hears the young voice. He hears the door be a promise. He hears kindness ask for a way in. He closes his eyes because sometimes seeing is too slow. Listening is faster. He listens for danger turning into harm. He prepares to break the promise of silence if he must. He prepares to keep it if the moment still needs quiet. He waits with every part of him that knows how to wait. Rain taps the roof with gentle persistence. Water finds the edge of the barrel and drips like a clock. A bluebird under the eave gives one sudden cry and flutters. The huntsman bites the inside of his cheek to keep from answering for it. He tastes copper and shame and love. They taste the same in the dark. He lifts his eyes to the sky and asks for one small thing. Let the right person say the right word at the right time. Let the wrong person slip on the turn in the path. Let the door be smart. Let the window be wiser. Let mercy be quick enough to catch the fall. He does not ask for victory. He asks for gentleness to win by steady inches. He feels the fox's nose press his wrist. It is a tiny push toward patience. He nods. He breathes. He waits. Not every warning reaches the door before the knock. Chapter 4. Daylight at the cottage. Morning arrives like warm milk in a blue cup. Dawn pulls a soft shawl over the trees. Mist braids itself between the pines. The river clears its throat and hums a low tune. Birdsong buttons the sky with tiny gold pins. Light pours through the cottage window like honey. The hearth yawns and remembers fire. The kettle stretches and finds its sigh. Snow White wakes before the first sparrow finishes the word hello. She sits up slow like a page turning. Her hair is a dark ribbon across her shoulder. She smiles at nothing and everything. She listens for the little snores. 7 small hills breathe under 7 small quilts. Each hill rises and falls like a promise kept. She tiptoes between them with the care of a cloud. She opens one shutter a finger's width. The morning smells of pine needles and wet moss. A curious beam of sunlight climbs onto the table. It touches the bowl of apples and stays a while. Red answers with a soft glow. Snow White nods to the apples as if they were guests. Good morning, bright hearts. The apples say nothing, but they shine their agreement. She lights the fire with yesterday's patience. Embers wake like sleepy fireflies. Flame leans toward the kettle with a friendly grin. Water laughs in small circles. Soon there will be tea the color of old stories. Soon there will be bread the color of afternoon. She loosens the checked cloth on the table. Crumbs lift like tiny birds and settle again. She wipes the wood with a damp cloth that remembers soap. Rings from cups fade like footprints in soft sand. Order returns in cheerful little steps. The room hums the key of tidy. One by one, hats peep over quilts. One by one, noses sniff the idea of breakfast. Good morning sounds like 7 different instruments. A trumpet of joy, a drum of hunger, a flute of complaint turned into a joke. Snow White answers each instrument with a smile that fits. Boots line up by the door like patient soldiers. Socks appear from mysterious places. Buttons do their brave work. Someone misplaces a belt and finds it on his head. Someone else finds a flower behind his ear and blames the wind. Giggles clink like spoons in a drawer. Snow White slices bread into clouds. Steam escapes and becomes a morning ghost. She spreads berry jam into 7 small sunsets. She pours tea into cups that remember every laugh. The table becomes a map of gratitude. Little hands travel from plate to mouth and back. Crumbs settle into a friendly constellation. They talk about work the way bees talk about flowers. Today the beams need checking. Today the mind needs singing to. Today the stove needs its hinge whispered back into goodness. Snow White listens with both ears and all her kindness. She nods when they ask for extra buttons on sandwiches. She nods when they ask for a story folded into the bread. She tells the story of a mouse who found a ruby cherry. The cherry became a sun for his tiny winter. Everyone says ah as if they can see it. When the plates are clear, the rules come out like polished stones. Not bossy, not heavy, just true. Do not open the door to strangers. Keep the latch on the window. Sing if you are afraid. Promise, promise, promise. 7 fingers point in friendly warning. 7 eyes widened for emphasis. Snow White places her hand on her heart. I promise. Her voice is a silk ribbon. The promise sits inside the cottage like a patient chair. She ties a scarf around the smallest neck. She smooths a collar that refuses to behave. She tucks an extra slice of bread into a pocket with a wink. She dusts flour from a hat and flour from a cheek. They glow with the pride of being cared for. She glows with the quiet joy of caring. Door latch lifts. Morning steps over the threshold with 7 pairs of boots. The forest says hello with 1,000 greens. The path curls away like a friendly cat's tail. Their little voices braid with birdsong. Snow White stands in the doorway until the last hat is a berry in the trees. She lifts her hand in a wave they can feel even with their backs turned. And then she closes the door with the gentlest click. The click sounds like a good idea. The cottage and Snow White are alone now, but not lonely. Work begins to sing its soft songs. Broom hush, bucket plink, cloth whisper. She moves through rooms as if blessing them. She folds the quilts into the morning shapes. She straightens little tools that like to wander. She tells the chairs, thank you for your patience. She thanks the table for holding so much laughter. The furniture is polite and answers by being quiet. The window invites a little more light. She opens the shutter 2 finger widths. A droplet rolls down the glass and draws a silver line. Outside, a doe considers the garden and decides to be mannerly. A chipmunk carries a seed larger than its idea of itself. A bluebird rehearses a warning it hopes it will not need. Snow White waves to them with a soft palm and a softer smile. Friends, today, let us be careful and kind. The creatures understand the important half of that sentence. They promise with their little eyes. She washes dishes and stacks them like white moons. She shakes the rug with a flourish and sends dust to a happier life. She beats a pillow that laughs and forgives her. She hangs laundry like flags that mean peace. The line becomes a river of cotton clouds. Breeze sails them a little and brings them back. On the shelf, the apples keep their patient glow. She picks one up as if it might bruise from a thought. She polishes it with the hem of her apron. Red deepens into ruby. Her face visits the apple and leaves. She sets the apple beside the window where the light is kind. There you are. The apple seems pleased to be there. She sews a little tear in a little sleeve. Her needle goes in and out like a careful fish. Thread follows in a single quiet river. A sleeve becomes whole again with 12 small bridges. She snips the end and ties a knot that will keep the world together for at least a week. She smooths the cloth with her palm and smiles at its second life. She kneads dough with a rhythm that would make bells jealous. Push, fold, turn, rest. The dough answers by becoming soft and brave. It will rise because it wants to impress her. It will become bread because it loves to hold butter. She covers it with a cloth that has known secrets. It dreams in the bowl of being sliced into afternoon. She hums while she sweeps. She hums while she dusts. She hums while she pauses to look at the sky. Her tune changes with the light, but it keeps coming home. A moth bumps the window and then remembers it is daytime. It apologizes to the glass by sitting still. The floorboards creak like friendly grandparents. They remember every dance. They remember every fall turned into laughter. They remember tiny feet learning to be brave. Snow White thanks them for holding her steps. The floor answers by holding the next one, too. She waters the little row of herbs on the sill. Mint nods. Time counts. Rosemary pretends to be aloof and then soften. Basil smiles broad as summer. The kitchen fills with a green whisper of flavor. Lunch is already thinking about itself. At the edge of the clearing, the forest leans in. It listens to the careful music of home. It breathes with the chimney's slow exhale. It keeps score in rings of wood and sighs of needles. It keeps the cottage inside its arms. It keeps Snow White inside its thoughts. A shadow passes high and easy. A hawk is penciling the sky. Its eye finds everything and forgives most of it. Snow White watches for a moment and then returns to blankets and buttons and bowls. Her kingdom is small and complete. Her crown is kindness. Her throne is a wooden chair that does not creak when she sits. By late morning, the cottage gleams in the quiet way bread gleams. Clean without bragging. Orderly without scolding. She stands in the doorway of her own work and breathes. It smells like a beginning that has already begun. It smells like safety with windows. From far away, a hammer sings once. From far away, a laugh answers. From far away, the heartbeats of 7 friends are steady. Snow White closes her eyes and thanks the world. The world answers with a soft wind on her cheek. She takes that as a yes. On the peg, the blue ribbon rests a minute, then 2. She reties it with a touch, like the last line of a poem. The bow sits neat as a blessing. Her braid lies across her shoulder like a road to evening. Her hands are ready for more gentle tasks. Her heart is ready to be brave if bravery arrives disguised as a stranger. Lunch becomes afternoon. Afternoon becomes a lullaby in the making. Time opens its fingers and lets minutes leap and land. Snow White hears them and smiles at their little feet. Chapter 5. Alone but not alone. The door is closed, but company stays. Quiet is company. Light is company. Work is company. The forest keeps watch like a patient friend outside the glass. Snow White keeps watch inside with a broom and a song. She chooses tasks that make the cottage purr. She oils the hinge that likes to complain about being useful. She thanks it for restraint as it learns to whisper. She brushes the hearth until ash arranges itself like a winter meadow. She folds the dishcloths into perfect squares that talk to each other in cotton voices. She lines up wooden spoons so they will not argue before supper. Between each little task, she pauses. She listens to a special kind of silence, not empty, full of tiny approvals, floorboards agreeing, window panes nodding, her own breath saying yes. A mouse peeks from under the cupboard like a question mark. Its whiskers ask for a pardon it already has. Snow White kneels and sets a crumb as if it were a throne. The mouse bows and accepts without drama. Kindness changes nothing and everything at once. A bluebird lands on the sill and tilts its head. It brings the sky into the room on its tiny back. Snow White lifts a fingertip and the bird trusts it. They hold the moment together like two ends of a ribbon. Then the bird remembers it has a job called song and leaves. It leaves a note in the air for her to find. She finds it and hums. The feeling of being seen is gentle today. Not watched, witnessed. The trees have their eyes made of rings. The creek has its eyes made of moving silver. The grass has 1,000 green glances, and not one is unkind. Snow White understands this and does not pretend she is alone. She fills a bucket and steps outside to splash the little step. Water makes the stone shine like thought. She wrings the cloth into a spiral and watches it unwind. A dragonfly writes a quick sentence above the bucket and disappears. She reads the sentence by feeling happy for no reason. She glances at the path because that is what careful hearts do. It is empty and friendly. It curves away like a cat who will return when called. Footprints from morning have softened into the day. Edges blur. Edges are good at that. She returns inside and feeds the fire a whisper of wood. Flame answers like a shy child called to the front. It grows when no one is measuring. A quiet orange fills the room like warm tea. Shadows decide to be gentle. Snow White checks the window latch again. Her finger finds the click and confirms it. Promises like to be acknowledged. She speaks to the latch softly. Thank you for being a guard that never raises your voice. The latch does its brave work without applause. On the shelf, the apples rest and glow. One of them holds the morning's beam as if it were writing its memoir. Snow White turns the bowl a little so each side can feel special. She wonders which apple would last the longest. She wonders which apple has the sweetest patience. She decides all of them do. She sits with a piece of mending that does not mind being small. A thimble kisses her fingertip with a tin peck. The needle slides in and out like a song that doesn't want attention. Thread becomes path. Path becomes seam. Seam becomes whole. She breathes and the thread breathes with her. Outside, the deer steps into the yard like a thought visiting a memory. It tastes the grass and approves. Its ears turn like little boats finding wind. It freezes. It unfreezes. It leaves with no drama, as if it were always the plan. Farther back, a fox is a sentence with too many commas. Pause. Glance. Pause. Glance. It draws a curve behind the woodpile and disappears into punctuation. Snow White smiles at the thought of a fox writing stories with its tail. A cloud passes, and the room remembers Shadow. Shadow drinks from the corners and leaves a sip behind. Light returns and forgives everybody. The day proceeds on quiet feet. She remembers the rules without needing to say them. They sit in her mind like chairs at a table. Do not open the door to strangers. Keep the latch on the window. Sing if you're afraid. She adds one more silently. Be kind in ways that do not invite danger to dinner. She nods to herself like a teacher who agrees with the student. She hums a tune she sang as a child to the corners of a bigger palace. Those walls were tall and quiet. Those halls had floors that echoed like empty cups. She hums it here, and the echo returns as comfort. The cottage knows how to hold sound without turning it into loneliness. The broom and she have an agreement. It will not trip her. She will not make it responsible for every leaf. They keep their bargain with easy grace. Dust becomes a neat pile and then a goodbye. Farewell, little motes. Find a windowsill with a view. They accept her blessing like glittering pilgrims. Noon moves on. Afternoon ties its hair back. The shadow of the roof crosses the garden like a slow hand. She eats a slice of bread with a whisper of butter. She sits on the step and considers the sky's plans. The sky looks undecided and calm. It might be rain. It might be blue. It is allowed to choose later. A faint sense arrives like a letter without ink. Something far away has chosen. A path has been taken. A knock has begun in the bones of a hand not yet near. Snow White does not call this fear. She calls it attention. She places the empty plate aside and stands. She waters the herbs again, though they do not strictly need it. She listens to the water praise the soil. She waits for the sound to finish its sentence. She goes inside and closes the door softly behind her. The latch does its small, dependable ceremony. Click. She thanks it again. In the corner, a small wooden box holds keepsakes that are mostly feelings. A ribbon coiled from a day of laughter. A button that learned to be brave when it lost its twin. A pebble from a brook that sounded like a lullaby. She opens the lid, and the past smiles without teeth. She breathes and closes it again. Enough sweetness for now, she tells herself gently. Save some for the evening. She sets a pot of soup to think about being supper. Onions begin the story by turning clear without tears. Carrots add their orange paragraphs. Potatoes arrive like shy cousins and decide to stay. A bay leaf gives a speech that smells like safety. Steam writes on the window in invisible ink. Later, the dwarfs will read it with their noses. She tidies the mantle and straightens the little trinkets that insist on leaning. She dusts the mirror above the hearth and sees herself in its friendly curve. The reflection has warm eyes and flour on one cheek. She considers leaving the flower. She decides to leave it. A little white moon on her face to remember the bread's dream. Afternoon deepens into a gold that reminds everyone to be kind. The clock that is not a clock says soon. The forest leans in closer, as guardians do when shadows lengthen. Not menacing, attentive. Branches hold their breath without being asked. Birdsong lands on the low branch of silence. Snow White checks the latch again as if it were a heartbeat. Click, says the latch. Click, says her chest. They keep time together. She smiles and hums the smallest version of her tune. It floats like dandelion fluff and settles on the apples. The apples glow as if they approve of music. She begins to braid her hair anew for the evening. Strand over strand over strand. Patience becomes pattern. Pattern becomes comfort. Her hands know this dance without looking. The bow sits as if it had always planned to be there. She nods to the girl in the window. Ready? She tells her. Ready? The girl's eyes answer. Outside, a single raindrop writes a dot on the stone step. Another adds a second dot. Soon the step will have a small sentence of rain. The roof listens and prepares its gentle drum. The barrels clear their throats and promise to catch what falls. The forest feels the air change coats. It puts on silver. It puts on hush. It sends a messenger that is only a feeling. Care. Care now. Care a little more. Snow White does not know the language of trees, but she understands the meaning. She breathes in and breathes out with purpose. Her kindness gets its boots on. Chapter 6. The knock. Rain begins its careful music on the roof. A soft drum. A slow heart. The cottage listens, and the cottage smiles. Inside, Soup considers itself a success. Steam writes warmer sentences on the glass. The apples gleam like small red moons behind a cloud. From the path, a sound arrives in 3 polite syllables. Tap, 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 tap. A walking stick says excuse me to the stones. A shoe says may I to the step. A breath says please to the door. Snow White freezes without fear. She becomes attention and only attention. She glides to the window and leaves space for caution to walk beside her. She peers through the slice of glass between curtain and frame. Rain makes the world a watercolor. A small figure waits under a shawl the color of old roads. A basket hangs from an arm like a tired lantern. A hat hides the map of a face. Her promise to 7 small hills of quilts wakes in her chest. Do not open the door to strangers. Keep the latch on the window. Sing if you're afraid. She places a hand over the latch and feels its certainty. Then she places her other hand over her heart and feels something else. Kindness knocking from the inside. The tap comes again, softer than the rain. Tap, tap, tap. Not urgent. Patient. Almost shy. Snow White thinks of her own grandmother's hands. She thinks of the way old hands carry weather in their bones. She thinks of the way a long road begs for water. She lifts the window a breath. A ribbon of cool air slips in and says hello to her cheek. Raindrops dot the sill like little beads. Snow White keeps the latch seated but leaves the space enough for voices to meet. Yes? Her voice is friendly and brave at once. The figure tilts its head. A voice answers from under the shawl. It is thin as string and sweet as something that believes in itself. Forgive an old woman. The road is long today. A coin of kindness would buy me a step or two. Water. A place to rest my voice a moment and nothing more. Snow White looks at the door. The door looks back with wooden patience. She looks at the window. It looks back with glass courage. She decides to be both door and window. She lifts a cup, fills it at the pitcher, and carries it to the gap. She sets it on the sill, careful of the spill. Water for the road. Please. A hand appears. It is lined like a map of winters. It shakes a little, the way leaves do when they remember wind. It takes the cup with gratitude. The voice makes a small sound that might be a blessing. She drinks like someone who remembers being a child. She returns the empty cup with 2 hands as if it were a jewel. Snow White listens to the rain answer for both of them. Thank you, child, says the thin voice at last. I have small things to trade for kindness. Buttons that behave. Needles that never get lost. Ribbons that know how to keep secrets. No need, Snow White begins, and then kindness adds another thought. Perhaps a ribbon. The basket lifts into the window's little sky. Inside, objects nest like quiet eggs. Tin gleams politely. Spools of thread wait in patient rows. On top, a comb smiles with 3 teeth missing and still hopeful. And there, half hidden under nothing at all, red catches light. A deep, friendly red. An apple, says her mind. An apple says something else. Her breath makes a small cloud on the glass and then goes away. The old voice talks about miles and rain and how laughter used to live in her house and how it moved out when time did. Snow White listens and sees the lines between words. Loneliness written in neat strokes. She feels her own house holding her like a mother. She wishes the feeling could be cut into slices and shared. Not the door, says her promise. Not the latch, says her sense. But the window can be a bridge. She holds the comb up to the light. It looks like someone tried to make a crown out of mourning. She smiles and returns it gently to its place. Perhaps a ribbon, she says, finding the sentence she planned earlier. Something sky-colored. The old hand finds a spool that remembers summer. Blue like the good part of day. She threads it through her fingers like a river through rocks. She ties a little bow in the air to show its manners. Snow White feels her own bow now. Sisters, they seem to say. The apple rolls a whisper closer to the basket's lip. Just enough to enter the conversation without interrupting. The old voice chuckles at the clumsiness of things. Forgive an old fruit with no sense of balance. Snow White laughs softly because humor is a friend with excellent timing. She does not reach. She does not even lean. She breathes. The apple knows how to wait. The rain grows a little louder like a choir that found its harmony. Thunder speaks far away as if remembering a story. Snow White glances at the soup and back to the window. She can care for two things at once. She has practiced. The old voice clears its throat in a way that suggests an offer preparing to step on stage. Where kindness lives, fortune likes to visit, child. Take this and make a wish. Just a bite for good luck when the rain stops. The apple lifts as if unburdening the basket. It sits in an open palm like a small red world. Snow White looks and sees herself tiny and curved on the apple's skin. She sees the kitchen behind her bowing in the roundness. She sees the blue of her ribbon threading through the reflection. She hears the rules standing beside her like 7 quiet friends. She smiles at them and smiles at the old woman and lets the two smiles meet without touching. Not through the door, she says gently. Not with the latch. My friends would tease me for a week if I forgot our little rules. Her laugh makes the rules feel loved instead of strict. The old voice laughs too, like paper remembering wind. Window it is, then. Window luck is still luck. The apple inches nearer. It leaves a path of shine on the old palm. Snow White does not take it. She takes the ribbon instead. She threads it between her fingers and tests its promise. Soft, strong, true. She pays with a thank you and the kind of smile that invites a better day. The old voice receives all 3 like coins that never lose their shine. Outside, somewhere between oak and hill, a fox pauses in its sentence. It hears the word apple spoken without being said. It stares at the rain and tries to read it. Rain is a language the fox can almost understand. It moves again, punctuation returning. The old voice lowers, confiding in the way secrets put a hand on your sleeve. I had a daughter once, she says, letting sorrow clean its shoes on the threshold of the sentence. She liked blue, too. Snow White's heart steps closer to the window before her feet do. I am sorry, she says, and means it with daylight. The apple gleams as if grief polished it. The window warms with 2 breaths, making 1 small cloud. The soup murmurs a reminder to stir. Snow White stirs with 1 hand and keeps the other near the latch. The old voice compliments the smell of bay leaf. Snow White laughs softly at the sophistication of strangers. They stand with the rain between them, two women and a red thought. A bluebird flutters to the sill and gives a quick, bright shout. It is not a pretty note. It is a useful one. Snow White's eyes flick to it and back to the old woman. The old woman smiles like someone who knows birds are dramatic. The bird stamps its tiny foot and stamps again. Then it flies to the rafters to practice being patient in case no one listens. Snow White tests a new sentence in her mouth. If you would like to rest from the rain, I can set a chair under the eave. You will be dry and I will keep my promise. The old voice approves the compromise as if it invented compromises. You're wise, child. Wise is better than old sometimes. Snow White opens the door a breath and drags a chair to the wall where the roof makes a little porch for those who need it. She does not open the door enough for a person to pass. She opens it enough for kindness to step out and sit. The chair accepts the shawl and the basket like an honor. The old woman sighs into the relief of being allowed to be tired. From the chair, the apple waits at perfect distance. Not in the room, not in the rain, between. Snow White stands at the window with her hand still near the latch and her heart still near the other woman's words. They talk about the kind of things rain improves. Soup, stories, sleep, apples. The old voice makes the offer again, lighter now, like a feather trying the air. One bite for good luck when the bell in your chest agrees. No hurry, no pressure. Luck is a patient guest. Snow White nods and lets the offer float where it can do no harm. On the porch between weather and warmth where choices can breathe. Inside, the cottage counts its blessings by threes. Fire, roof, rules. It adds a fourth for today. Kindness with a latch. The rain writes longer sentences along the eaves. The forest quiets to hear the punctuation. Somewhere, thunder opens a book and then closes it, deciding to read later. The bluebird on the rafter keeps one eye on the apple and one on the girl it loves. Snow White ladles a spoonful of soup into a small wooden cup and sets it on the porch rail. Warmth for your hands, she says. The old woman warms her hands without pretending not to need it. Steam climbs her fingers like grateful cats. She thanks the girl with a look that understands more than it says. The apple gleams as if agreeing with both of them. In this gentle stalemate, time slows to count the rain. Snow White feels the counting in her pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The number soothes her as it always does. She breathes with it until her breath is the weather inside the room. The old voice tells a small story about a village where doors used to be left open and how the world is bigger now and asks for locks. Snow White listens with a smile that knows both truths can share a table. Locks and lanterns. Love and latches. She repeats the number in her chest and lets the story fold into the rain. The apple waits. The window holds. The rules hold. Kindness holds. The knock, which began as a sound, has become a conversation. And still, beyond words, the night moves its pieces into place. Care. Care now. Care a little more. The cottage understands. So does the girl. So does the bluebird with its tiny warrior heart. So does the forest that has seen this play before and still hopes for a softer ending. Chapter 7. The Temptation Game. Rain braids the eaves with patient fingers. The porch chair holds its guest between weather and warmth. The window holds its promise between caution and care. The apple holds its light between hands that know how to pretend. Snow White stands like a candle that hasn't decided to flicker. Her breath fogs a small petal on the glass. Her hand rests near the latch without touching it. Her heart rests near the stranger without moving the door. The old voice pours a teaspoon of story. Miles. Blisters. A daughter who loves sky blue. Ribbons that kept secrets even the wind couldn't steal. Kindness, she says, is the only road that never ends. Her smile is a crooked bridge. It invites careful steps. Snow White answers with little yeses that cost nothing. A nod. A half smile. A warmed cup passed through the window's breath. She is generous without surrender. She is careful without cruelty. Both fit her like a well-tied bow. The apple tips the conversation, no word itself. Red is a polite bell. Shine is a raised hand. It waits where offers like to wait, not forced, not shy. Simply there. Luck is stubborn, the old woman says kindly. It likes to be invited. Tradition, child. One bite for safe journeys. One bite and the rain remembers to be gentle. Just a superstition. But superstitions have soft feet. They do not break anything as they pass. Snow White smiles at the shape of the sentence. She has known superstitions that are only excuses for more hope. She has known hungry ideas dressed as helpful ones. She listens as if the words were water and she had time to taste. The basket answers a question no one spoke. 2 apples now, twins in a red rhyme. The old hands move with clumsy grace and split the scene. Half for me, half for you. See? Old teeth close on old fruit. A harmless bite performed like a prayer. The bluebird stamps once on the beam and swallows its protest. The storm clears its throat far away and chooses silence again. The forest leans in another inch as guardians do. Snow White studies the apple as if reading a map to a place she already lives. Her reflection curves across the skin like a ribbon around a gift. She sees herself smaller, nearer, brighter. She sees the window. She sees the latch. She sees the 7 small hills in her mind breathing under quilts. Her fingers do not reach. Her thoughts do. Compassion walks to the porch and sits. Caution stands at the window with one hand on its shoulder. The old voice laughs the way dry leaves laugh when a friendly boot scuffs them. Dear child, would I harm the hand that gave me water? Would I spoil a doorstep that gave me shelter from rain? The sentence is a loom. It weaves the picture she wants to see. Snow White answers with the politest armor. Your kindness is welcome. My rules are welcome too. We must make them share a chair. The old woman nods as if she invented sharing. Of course. Window gifts for window friends. She sets the apple's red half nearer the gap. Steam from the soup writes a veil between them and withdraws. The birds argue softly in the rafters. The mouse forgets to nibble. The door listens with its hinge. The floor listens with its knots. The cottage holds breath without choking. Let your wish be small, the old voice murmurs. Small wishes are the ones that grow. Wish for a song that never leaves you. Wish for a journey that ends at home. Wish for 7 friends to return smiling, boots muddy with good work. The wish fits Snow White's heart like a borrowed glove that somehow knows her hand. She takes one slow step that is not a step, closer without crossing. She looks at the apple the way you look at a bell you might ring in a quiet room. She hears the rules again, not scolding, only faithful. Do not open the door. Keep the latch. Sing if you are afraid. She is not afraid. She sings anyway, inside her breath. The old hand turns the apple's face so its brightest side is its truest. See, child, it is the color of morning dressed for a festival, a harmless red, a hopeful red, a red that wishes to be eaten by a good story. Snow White remembers the market and the careful fingers of bakers who bless the bread. She remembers how kindness sometimes manipulates, but more often it just wants to be seen. She places one palm flat on the glass to cool the decision. She watches her own hand bloom in fog and fade. The bluebird cannot help itself. It darts to the sill, pecks the frame, pecks the air, pecks the idea. A tiny sword against a giant thought. Snow White smiles with gratitude for its worry. I hear you, she thinks. I hear you, and I hear her. Both notes are true. To honor both truths, she invents a new promise on the spot. Window only, she whispers to herself. No door. No step over the seam. If luck must be invited, it will come through a space the world can still protect. She lifts the window the smallest degree that is more than before. Enough for a gift to pass, not enough for harm to walk. The old woman's hand approaches like a visitor to a baby's cradle. Soft, slow, seen. Snow White does not take the apple yet. She lets it rest on the sill between worlds. She considers it the way the moon considers the ocean. She lets its light move her without pulling her into tide. For you, the old voice whispers. For a wish that knows your name. No hurry. No need to be brave quickly. Some bravery is the kind that takes its time. Snow White nods and answers with a sentence made of 7 parts. For my friends. For the path. For the roof. For the soup. For the birds. For the mouse. For the quiet that keeps us gentle. She smiles at the red half waiting on the sill. She does not bite. She lets wanting become a softer thing than hunger. The rain approves by becoming finer. Threads, not ropes. A curtain you can see through without tearing. The forest hums a note lower as if setting the key for a song it hopes will end well. I will keep it, Snow White says at last, but for later. When the bell in my chest says yes, the old woman bows to the wisdom in delay. Later is a good friend to luck. Later makes wishes ripen. She leaves the apple where it is and closes the window to its earlier inch. The latch smiles in its sleep. The bluebird smooths its feathers and pretends it did not almost shout. The mouse remembers its crumb and forgives everyone. The old woman rests deeper into the chair under the eave. Rain polishes her shawl to a darker thought. Her hand strokes the apple's twin in the basket without looking. Patience, she tells it, and herself in the storm. Patience answers the forest, which has more of it than anyone. They talk of ribbon widths and thread strengths and how some buttons are braver than others. They talk of mending and what it means. Snow White says, I like things that can be made whole. The old voice says, so do I, with a flavor that tastes like the opposite. Inside, the soup decides it has told its whole story. A soft bubble claps its hands in the pot. Evening combs its fingers through the pines. The path learns the footprints by heart, so it won't forget them later. Kindness and caution sit side by side and share a blanket. They both look at the apple. They both promise to stay until the decision is not a decision, just a breath. The old voice makes one last gentle offering. A blessing, child, not a bargain. Then she murmurs words that sound like water remembering mountains. Snow White bows her head because gratitude is easier with your chin down. When she lifts her eyes, the apple on the sill seems to glow from inside. She does not call it temptation. She calls it waiting in a red dress. She calls it a choice that will still be there after the rain. She tells herself, not unkindly, some doors lock behind you. Some do not. We will find out which kind this is. Night trims the edges of the world with velvet. The old woman stands, thanks the chair, thanks the porch, thanks the rain for slowing. She thanks the girl for being exactly as kind as safety allowed. Snow White thanks her for being exactly as patient as rules required. The apple remains on the sill like a small moon granted a window sky. It does not roll. It does not plead. It does not sing. It simply waits for the bell inside her chest to say yes. Between them, a hush as thin as glass and as strong. Between them, a promise that someone will keep. Between them, a red thought that has almost finished its plan. Listen, says the forest. Listen, says the roof. Listen, says the bluebird with its whole body. And Snow White listens to the apple, to the rules, to the rain, to her own brave, careful heart. Chapter 8. Bite, fall, silence. Evening sets its tea on the sill of the sky. The rain loosens into mist. The porch forgets it was ever wet and remembers it is wood. The forest changes keys without starting a new song. Snow White stands with the apple's red half cupped in the window's hand. She has not moved it. She has moved around it. She has cooked with it, watching. She has stirred soup while it learned her face. The old woman pinches her shawl close as if the air might notice what she carries. She lifts the basket, heavy with nothing but meaning. She makes a small, courteous cough. Forgive an old habit, child. My mother taught me, luck gets cold if you leave it waiting too long. Her smile is the last nudge a river needs before it remembers it was always headed to the sea. Snow White looks at the apple the way you look at a bell when the room has already gone quiet. She looks at the bluebird pretending to preen. She looks at her hands, which have done nothing wrong all day. She looks at the latch, which has kept every promise perfectly. Inside her chest, a bell rings once. Not loud, not shy. A clear note that belongs to her and no one else. Yes, says the bell. Yes, but gently. She opens the window the width of a sigh. The room and the porch greet each other like neighbors across a fence. She draws the apple half into the room as if accepting a letter. It sits in her palm like a captured sunset that trusts her to set it free. For my friends, she whispers, as if the wish could hear and behave. For the path, for the roof, for the song that does not leave. Her lips almost smile, then remember reverence. She lifts the apple as if it were a sleeping bird she intends to kiss awake. The old woman watches without watching. Her hands know the next heartbeat before it happens. Her eyes hold still the way stones do when they want to listen. Snow White brings the apple to the soft doorway of her mouth. She pauses to hear anything that might want to speak. The bluebird gives one almost sound and stops. The forest stops too, but in a way that feels like making room. Teeth meet red. Skin breaks with a sound like a tiny bell for giving a bigger bell. Juice touches her tongue and says, sweet, sweet, sweet. Then something else arrives on a slower horse. Dream, it says. Rest, it says. Let go, says a hand not unkind, but not invited. The bite is small. The world is not. It tilts just enough to become a different world. Heat leaves her fingers like a soft goodbye. Color moves away from her cheeks to paint the apple brighter. Her knees remember gravity is their oldest friend. Her lashes flutter like startled moths and decide to be still. She does not drop like a stone. She folds like a nap in summer. Skirt smooths itself as if trying to please the floor. Ribbon loosens its own bow to give her more dream. Her head finds the softest part of the rug because kindness arranges even this. The apple half lands unbitten side down, as if hiding its secret from the room. The chair under the eave groans in a voice only wood knows. The old woman stands very, very still and lets triumph breathe through her borrowed lungs. For an instant, the disguise forgets its job and the face beneath climbs to the surface like a cruel fish. Then the mask returns and the shawl tucks the moment away. The bluebird dives and becomes a small storm. Wings write no across the air in letters big enough for the door to read. It pecks the apple, pecks the rug, pecks the idea that did this. It does not wake the girl. This is not a sleep birds can argue with. The mouse scurries to her hand and sits on the curve of her finger, like a comma refusing to end the sentence. It waits. It waits. It continues waiting. The soup decides not to boil over. It stands back from the edge as if respectful of the new hush. The hearth coals color themselves careful. The old woman lifts the basket, now heavy with victory, and does what victors always do too soon. She leaves. Her stick finds the path and approves of its old memory. Her feet find the stones she taught them decades ago. Her shawl catches one last drop of rain and wears it like a pin. Inside, everything that loved the girl becomes a bell. The window, the latch, the ribbon, the rug. They all ring in their own way. The sound is not loud. It is everywhere. The forest hears and answers the way old things do, without panic, with purpose. It calls 7 names in the language of lantern light. It sends a wind that knows a shortcut through roots. It asks a cloud to wait on the ridge and consider thunder. It asks the fox to find the huntsman and shame him with urgency. The fox runs, as if punctuation depended on it. Snow White's breath is a secret you can still find if you know where to look. It enters softly and leaves softer. It reminds the room of lullabies it will need later. Her fingers curl the way safe hands do in miniature. Her face is not afraid. It is busy. The bite sits like a small star gone to sleep inside her. The star will not wake until the world changes its mind. The world is changing it now, but slowly, like seasons. Evening tilts further. Rain considers returning and decides thunder can speak first. The first far drum roll steps onto the stage of the hills. Leaves answer with a shiver. The window compliments the storm by being brave. On the path, the old woman is a neat shape against trees that have memorized many shapes. She does not look back. She is looking forward to proof, to mirrors, to rooms that will finally like her face. Near the clearing, a man with a fox at his heel catches a smell that is not rain. He catches a silence that is not rest. He catches a sight through leaves that is the end of a question. He moves before he finishes deciding to move. Roots forgive his hurry because his hurry is for someone else. He reaches the edge, sees the red on the sill, the ribbon on the floor. The girl who made the cottage look like a prayer, now making the cottage look like a church. He understands too much at once. He chooses one thing to do. He whistles a note the dwarfs taught him for emergencies that should never have existed. The note leaps the distance like a brave frog. Somewhere 7 hearts stand up at once. Thunder comes closer wearing boots. Wind shakes its pockets and drops rain across the porch. The bluebird becomes a siren, small and bright. The mouse holds the girl's finger tighter and does not know it is small. The huntsman kneels and does not touch. He puts his palm near her breath and accepts the miracle that is still there. Suspended, he thinks. And the word is a bridge he cannot cross. He looks at the door. He looks at the path. He looks at the dark between trees that has learned to move like a person. He stands and follows that moving dark. He does not call. He carries silence like a weapon. Inside, the cottage does its other job now. Sanctuary becomes vigil. The hearth keeps the room's heartbeat steady. The glass keeps her safe from weather. The apples in the bowl dim their brag to keep from being unkind. The dwarf's tools drop in a line along the mine like decisions abandoned for better ones. Boots strike the path not in a row, but in a river. Lanterns swing like gold bells with fire inside. 7 names call one name with one voice. The forest leads them. The old woman reaches the bend where Cliff begins to think about being Cliff. She looks at the sky and decides to outwalk the rain. She does not know how fast the rain can run when it wants to. Behind her, the huntsman is a shadow that never trips. Ahead of him, 7 smaller shadows learn to be thunder. Between them all, the storm takes attendance and finds everyone present. Back in the cottage, Snow White sleeps a sleep that is not sleep. The room becomes so quiet you can hear a wish trying to get its shoes on. The bluebird removes one tiny strand of hair from her cheek and places it gently on the rug as if arranging flowers at a shrine. Everyone is doing something that matters even if it is small, and the apple half-bitten, half-secret waits where it fell, pretending to be innocent while giving itself away with shine. Chapter 9. 7 footsteps one storm, lantern light hurries through trees like captured sunlight being smuggled past night. 7 pairs of boots speak the old language of roots and stones. The forest understands every word and answers with shortcuts. The dwarfs reach the clearing as one body with 14 hands. They become a ring around the girl and a roof over her with their grief. Names tumble out like mismatched beads and still make a necklace. They look up with eyes that ask the sky to explain itself. The sky answers with rain. She breathes, says the huntsman from the doorway, one hand on the frame as if asking permission to be here. Not gone. Not gone. The words clear a space in the panic big enough for thinking. A red half glows on the rug like a confession. A bluebird points with its whole self and scolds the world. The dwarves need one glance to understand the shape of the story. Kindness opened a window. Luck put on a costume. Sleep learned a new trick. They do what people who love do next. They make edges round. They move sharp things away. They lift her carefully as if moving a bell that is already ringing. They speak her name the way you speak to someone in a dream you don't want to end. They straighten the ribbon without tightening it. They wrap her in the quilt that knows her favorite corner. The storm enters the cottage with its hat off. It puts its thunder outside and its rain on the eaves. Inside, it listens. It learns reverence. The fox bumps the huntsman's calf. He nods. They both go. One follows the other, who follows the smell of plans and pride. The dwarves leave 2 to guard and 5 to chase. The 2 at the door stand like pillars. Their tears are simply weather. The chase is a lesson in the light. Lanterns swing. Wet leaves flash. The path becomes a slow river of mud and intention. The old woman's stick taps out a code to the cliff. The cliff answers by being itself. The forest is not cruel, but it is honest. Slopes are slopes, edges are edges. What is weight will show it. What is secrets will carry them poorly in rain. The old woman glances back and sees small fire approaching. She sees a bigger shadow behind it that does not breathe hard. She quickens. The path narrows until even the rain has to walk single file. Her basket knocks her knee like a reminder that victory is clumsy. The dwarves call words the storm does not eat. Stop. Enough. No farther. The words do not expect to be obeyed. They expect to be heard by someone else. Fate. Balance. The part of the world that keeps tallies and prefers even numbers. The cliff arrives all at once the way truth does when you have been avoiding it. It drops its long face into dark trees below, where thunder likes to listen to itself. The old woman knows this place too well. She has stood at its lip and imagined everything but this. Wind takes sides with the pursuers. It pulls at her shawl as if asking a favor. Her hands grip the basket like a memory she refuses to share. Her foot finds the loose stone that has waited years to be relevant. It gives a little. It tells her to be careful. She is too busy to hear. 5 lanterns close the circle to a bright, wet coin. The huntsman's shadow completes it with a quiet edge. No weapons are drawn. None are needed when rain holds everything like a warning. "Give it," says the tallest dwarf, not loud. Kindness made this. Kindness will undo it. The words sound like a plan learning to be a promise. The old woman's eyes flash a color no bird wears. She smiles the way cliffs smile at climbers. She lifts the basket and makes a choice that has no mercy left in it. She throws the proof into the dark as if taking answers away could erase questions. The basket arcs. The world leans to see where it will land. It meets a branch. The branch refuses its job. The basket drops, vanishes into the green teeth of the ravine. Silence arrives for one single beat, dressed as surprise. Then the stone under her slides its opinion under her heel. The cliff takes back the inch it lent. She grabs at air and finds rain. She tries to use her stick to become a root. The stick retires with a snap. The huntsman steps forward 1 step, and the forest says no with a gust that is also a shove. He stops. He learns again what cliffs have taught everyone who met them. Some endings are not work. They are gravity finishing a story. The old woman's outline leaves the edge and looks briefly like anyone falling in a dream. The storm swallows the sound she makes. It is not a scream. It is the name of the thing she wanted most, said like a question to a place that does not answer. The dwarfs do not cheer. They do not wish for a different ending either. They stand and let the rain finish the sentence. They lower their lanterns the way men lower their hats at a grave not marked by stones. The huntsman stares into green dark where the basket vanished. Not worth climbing, says the forest, not unkindly. Proof is for courts. Tonight is a church. Go home. They go. The storm follows as an escort rather than a pursuer. Its thunder keeps pace like a drumline at a solemn parade. The path widens for grief to walk to abreast. Near the cottage, 2 small figures still at the door have become statues, whose tears have carved new expressions on their faces. When the 5 return and the huntsman with them, the statues animate into brothers again. They do not ask what happened. They know what lightning says when it leaves. Inside, the vigil has learned patience few kitchens know. The hearth is a long, low heartbeat. The bluebird sleeps with one eye open and one wing on snow-white sleeve. The mouse has appointed itself guardian of her index finger and will accept the medal later. They gather around her without crowding. They bring their lanterns home and make a sunrise in the room. They ask no one for permission to stay. They stay because that is what love does when it has run out of other verbs. We will not bury a breath, says the tallest dwarf, and the others repeat it softer. We will not call this an ending. We will name it what it is. A door only patience can open. We will wait until patience wants to. They build what waiting needs. A glass to keep weather from touching her. A frame to keep glass from forgetting its job. Flowers that never wilt in this room for reasons no one argues with. A place for each of them to sit without guilt. A place for the bluebird to practice faith. The huntsman helps and leaves without leaving. He stands outside the window like a tree that grew overnight. The fox sits at his boot and accepts rain as its new fur. The storm spends itself without asking a receipt. Thunder becomes a rumor. Rain becomes a memory on the step. Clouds lift like curtains when an apology is ready to be made. The moon steps into its part as if it has been rehearsing all day. They layer under the glass. They straighten the ribbon that keeps forgetting to be stern. They polish away every breath's shadow except the one she needs. They speak to her as if sleep could take notes. They tell her about soup, about the mouse's promotion, about the bluebird's courage. They tell her about the storm's manners and the cliff's honesty. They leave out what will not help her dream. One by one, 7 little hands rest on the glass. You are safe. You are loved. You are home. The words land like feathers and refuse to leave. The huntsman touches the doorframe with 2 fingers and makes a quiet oath he will keep even if he is never asked to. The forest signs it as witness with a low wind that smells like pine and forgiveness. Dawn, which has been waiting in another room, clears its throat softly. The sky brightens as if untying a ribbon. Birds wonder if it is polite to sing and decide to be brave carefully. The glass catches first light and breaks it into gentle pieces that do not cut. They sit. They breathe. They keep watch. Time begins to walk in circles around the cottage. Circles become rings. Rings become years. But not yet. For now, it is only morning getting ready to be morning again. For now, it is 7 friends beside a girl who has become promise. For now, it is a forest that has decided to help the way forests help by holding, by sheltering, by outlasting bad ideas. The apple half on the rug has dried at the edge exactly as much as guilt dries when the truth sits quietly beside it. They do not look at it. They step around it as if stepping around the word if. They choose instead the word when she wakes, when the song returns, when the world remembers what mercy looks like. When a wheel turns the right way by accident or love. The bluebird fluffs itself into a sphere of resolve. The mouse sleeps on duty and will be forgiven by everyone. The hearth lays down one last coal like a star on a pillow. Outside, the huntsman watches the path for new footsteps. He knows the shape of the ones that will come someday. 7 footsteps found one storm. The storm passed. The footsteps stayed. That is what really happened the night the apple taught everyone how to wait. And in the quiet that follows storms, even glass learns to breathe. Chapter 10. The glass and the seasons. Morning folds its golden shawl. The cottage breathes like a cradle. Hands polish what hope touches. A frame becomes a promise. Glass becomes a gentle sky. They lift her as if lifting dawn. Quilts bow to let light in. The ribbon learns to be still. Her lashes keep their soft secret. Her breath is a hidden lullaby. The room listens with both hands. They set her where flowers wait. Not a tomb, a window for mercy. The glass holds weather outside. The glass lets love inside. Lanterns stand like quiet saints. Each flame kneels to the moment. The dwarfs make a circle of care. Their tools retire to corners. Work changes its name to vigil. Days begin to walk in rings. Rings become seasons on tiptoe. Spring tiptoes in with wet shoes. Lilies practice smiling forever. Bluebells rehearse their tiny bells. Birdsong ties ribbons on branches. The bluebird guards the ribbon bow. The mouse learns patience by heart. Bees bring news from beyond trees. They report only sweetness today. They visit glass and drift away. They do not understand sleep. They understand flowers that wait. The dwarves speak the day to her. They catalog crumbs turned into jokes. They recount the mind's small miracles. A beam held. A hinge agreed. A lantern found its manners. They tell her supper had courage. They tell her thunder learned courtesy. They tell her nothing sharp or heavy. They tell her only what helps breathe. At noon, they polish the glass sigh. At dusk, they leave a blossom. At night, they share the silence. They do not let silence be lonely. The huntsman stands outside, weathered. He wears apology like an old coat. He does not knock. He keeps wolves from the perimeter. He counts stars as if counting yeses. The fox curls on his boot. It sleeps like a red comma. Between sentences, it dreams of mercy. Summer arrives with green pockets. Leaves clap in slow applause. Grass hums under bare feet. The river takes long, lazy breaths. Children from a quiet village wander. They bring berries and soft questions. Who is she? Why is she glass? The dwarfs answer with soothed voices. A good person learning a long nap. The children nod as if informed. They press palms to the window sky. They leave thumbprints like small constellations. The dwarfs polish but keep the stars. Some prints are worth keeping. Evening fires breathe vanilla into twilight. Stories lean on porch rails. Old tales grow soft shoes. No one argues with beauty's patience. Autumn comes carrying cinnamon. Fog writes cursive in the meadow. Apples blush behind leaf hands. Wind teaches branches to bow. Leaves practice falling with gratitude. The dwarves stitch scarves for mornings. They wrap the glass in watchful warmth. Wood piles become tidy little mountains. The bluebird learns the language of smoke. It understands ember and hush. They count days by candle ends. They mark months by sweater threads. They mark hope by the breath's whisper. If one wavers, they steady it. If one steadies, all steady too. They bring her stories every Sunday. Story of a mole who gardened stars. Story of a kettle that sang rain. Story of a button that found bravery. They place them like petals around her. Winter arrives wearing silver. Snow hushes the loud edges. Icicles become glass cousins. They bow to the greater window. Breath makes clouds on glass edges. They polish with mittened care. They sing songs that warm wrists. Inside, coals purr like tame panthers. Night hangs its cold cloak outside. Inside, Rosemary remembers summer's hands. The mouse fashions a nest by mittens. It dreams of crumb constellations. The bluebird listens to winter's metronome. Tick of melt. Talk of flake. It keeps time for the house. Stars kneel near the rooftop. They peer in and approve. They send one silver thread nightly. It lands on the glass and rests. Sometimes snow lands on the window. It lingers, then turns to tears. Tears slide and vanish kindly. The dwarfs whisper goodnight to every drop. Spring returns from the other room. Sap climbs ladders inside bark. Brooks rehearse laughter again. Moss irons its green suit. The cottage opens its sleepy shutters. Light spills like forgiven milk. Crocuses knock from underneath. They are let in by thaw. The dwarfs change wreaths by the door. From pine to straw to circled daisies. The wreaths memorize seasons like alphabet. The glass remembers every letter. Time settles into a loving habit. Each day, polish, speak, sing, breathe. Each week, sweeping, soup, stories, blossoms. Each month, ribbons washed and retied. Each season, gratitude relearned softly. Visitors arrive with gentle boots. They leave gently as well. No gossip grows here. Only watchfulness and bread. They plant a little orchard nearby. They plant 7 trees in one. They call the 8th when shades into a smile. The huntsman helps dig holes. He drops apologies with the roots. He waters them with quiet promise. They drink and rise forgivingly. On some evenings, music wanders in. A shepherd leaves a flute's echo. A washerwoman leaves a humming line. A peddler leaves a market cadence. The forest keeps the measures safe. They rest in the rafters till dawn. Light wakes, and they resume fluttering. They circle her like small moth prayers. She breathes and their wings steady. One day the wind shifts kindly. It smells like new journeys arriving. The dwarves look at one another. Do you feel it? I do. It is a road learning a song. The bluebird hears it first clearly. A melody walking toward the clearing. A voice that knows how to listen. A map made of notes and yearning. The forest opens a green corridor. It hangs lanterns of noon among leaves. It dials back distance by a thought. Something good has found the address. The glass glows as if anticipating. The ribbon tugs once like memory. The mouse wakes on cue and stretches. The dwarfs set the room in order. Already tidy. Already blessed. Still, they fluff hope's pillows. They sweep the welcome that doesn't need sweeping. They place a sprig of apple blossom. They whisper, "Come gently, whoever you are." The seasons have done their patient work. Love has kept its full-time watch. The door will not be asked to hurry, but the path hums, yes, yes, yes. Chapter 11. The Prince and the Lost Song. He is not a prince who shouts. He is a prince who listens. He owns less noise than most crowns. He keeps more silence than most hearts. He learned music before riding. He learned kindness before court. He was taught maps, then melodies. The melodies stayed. They became his compass. They became the way he traveled. He left palaces for practice. He measured kingdoms by lullabies. He questioned roads with quiet hums. He traded titles for tune names. Villagers called him, "What's that song?" Children called him, "It's coming." Old women called him, "You remind me." He listened as if paid in starlight. He slept where stories dried overnight. He woke where kettles like to sing. He never rushed a porch tale. He paid with patience and mending. He darned a sock, then a sorrow. He tuned a fiddle, then a friendship. He followed a rumor of a melody. They said a forest was humming. They said the hum had a face. They said the face was sleeping. They said the sleep was beautiful. He stood very still and listened. Far off, a silver thread unrolled. It crossed hill and hedgerow gently. It tugged the little bones and ears. He followed with bare, careful steps. Birds noticed and softened their chatter. Leaves made room on low branches. The path quieted under his boots. The melody learned his name quickly. It moved toward him without haste. They met in the middle of hush. He hummed one note in answer. The forest checked his sincerity. It pressed soft needles against wrists. It watched his eyes when he breathed. It heard his apology to a nettle. Approved, the woods opened a seam. Sunlight stitched gold through green. Air tasted like something beginning. He came to the edge of the clearing. He did not step in yet. He waited the way mornings wait. Lanterns hung from branches like commas. He completed the sentence with a wonder. The glass lay like a captured dawn. Inside, a girl like a kept promise. Hair like night braided into order. Hands like folded gentleness. Breath like a moth's soft wing. He knew the song's source immediately. He had heard it before dreaming. He had heard it in a well. He had heard it between bells. He had heard it when he stopped speaking. He understood his task without orders. Learn her music. Harm nothing. Ask nothing loud. Ask with silence and skill. The dwarfs stepped from shade watchfully. They did not frown. They did not smile. They measured his footfall's kindness. They measured his throat's humility. They measured how he greeted glass. He bowed to the window sky. That was the right first gesture. He removed his gloves without flourish. He warmed his hands before speaking. He spoke like a low string warmed. Good evening, friends who are family. I heard a song with no singer. I followed to return what belongs. If I am wrong, I will leave. If I am right, I will listen. They glanced at the bluebird's verdict. It tilted its head and nodded. They glanced at the mouse's courage. It didn't run. They glanced at the glass's patience. It did not cloud at his breath. Then the tallest dwarf answered, We keep watch over kindness asleep. We mend the day around her. We count seasons and keep soft. What can you add to soft? Listening, he said simply, and a voice that remembers hers. He sat not too near, not far. He asked for no stool or cushion. He placed his lute upon his knee. He tuned it as if waking a baby. Each string yawned and focused. Each string remembered water and wood. He plucked one note and waited. The note went out and met glass, bowed. It returned with a quieter twin. He braided them into a path. He walked the path with his voice. He sang the song the forest hummed. He did not decorate or boast. He carried the melody like bread. He offered it to the room. He offered it to her breath. He offered it to the memory of laughter. The dwarfs sat and listened properly. They put hats in laps reverently. They faced the singer, then her. They let tears vote with moderation. The bluebird joined on a high thread. The mouse added a rhythm by heartbeat. The hearth lifted flame and encouragement. The song found corners and dusted them. It climbed rafters and hung lanterns. It circled glass without smudging. It wrote yes across the ribbon bow. He sang her morning chores softly. He sang her market steps kindly. He sang the way she said promise. He sang the way she meant promise. He sang the door's faithful click. He sang the window's careful inch. He sang the apple's polite brightness. He did not sing blame. He did not sing thunder's pride. He did not sing falling or cliffs. He sang holding. He sang returning. He sang patience as a craft. He sang mercy as a habit. Night knelt beside the cottage floor. Stars leaned against panes and listened. One slipped down and rested on glass. It tried to be a candle and failed beautifully. He let silence land between verses. He respected breath's slow work. He watched her lashes for wind. He watched her fingers for clouds. He sang until nothing needed singing. He ended on a note that forgave endings. He bowed to glass and stood. He asked nothing again on purpose. He left a folded song by flowers. For mornings when courage yawns late. For nights when keeping watch aches. He thanked the dwarfs with both hands. He thanked the bluebird with eye contact. He thanked the mouse by not moving fast. He thanked the forest without speaking. He stepped backward into the door's shadow. He looked once more without clutching. He saw not beauty but belonging. He saw not fate but fellowship. He whispered, "I am nearby if needed." The path kept his footprints warm. The trees traded news behind him. He slept under a roof of branches. He dreamed of the glass a little. He dreamed of breath like a moth. He woke before dawn, sipped the hill. He returned with the light's first pocket. He sang again, softer, shorter. He learned the pauses she preferred. He learned where silence fits best. On the third morning, he spoke once. Not to her, to the day in the doorway. He said, "Let the right thing happen." I have no better words than that. The day nodded and entered. It brought a root's slow strength. It brought a cartwheel of birds. It brought a breeze with good grammar. It brought the accident that is not accident. A mole burrowed near the coffin's feet. It pressed earth politely upward. A root stretched from the orchard when. It tested its season's arithmetic. It touched a stone that had a plan. The stone introduced itself to a plank. The plank shifted by a breath. The glass sighed as houses do. The frame bowed like elders greeting. The dwarf on watch leaned forward. He saw nothing move and everything rearrange. He called no one. He waited the way rain waits. He listened the way bread listens to ovens. The prince arrived at noon's doorstep. He felt a chord tune itself. He did not claim the moment. He set his lute down gently. He set his voice down gently. He let the room do the singing. The dwarfs filled the doorway behind him. They made a hush that glowed. The bluebird held its breath bravely. The mouse closed its eyes deliberately. The orchard sent one petal to reconnoiter. It landed on glass and did not melt. Something had changed its mind kindly. He leaned and spoke to Patience. If now, we will be gentle. If later, we will be gentler. He would have waited years more. He would have stayed song and stillness. He was ready to be furniture. He was ready to be weather. The forest smiled in rings. It whispered to the root beneath. The root remembered the word lift. It shared the word with wood. Wood shared it with nail. Nail shared it with balance. Balance whispered to the apple's shadow. The dream inside her shifted like morning. A large star remembered gravity. It wanted to go home politely. It moved as if asking permission. Her throat cleared as far as dreams clear. A small sound like first snow happened. The room did not move. He did not move. They all agreed to breathe together. He sang one note he had been saving. It was the note doors like best. It was the note pillows believe. It was the note gardens use at dawn. The note floated to the glass edge. It seeped through because love thins barriers. It settled on her mouth like shelter. Her lashes trembled like shy sparrows. Her fingers asked a question of air. The ribbon remembered to be blue. The breath she borrowed became her own. The world listened for the next sound. It would be quiet. It would be enough. Chapter 12. The Awakening Truth. Several tellings walk beside this moment. We choose the softest road through them. One telling says love unlocked. One telling says balance tipped kindly. Both are true when spoken gently. Glass holds a reflection of dawn. Dawn inhales and offers it back. A root underfoot completes an errand. A plank remembers a better angle. A lodged piece of red idea shifts. It releases itself without fanfare. Her breath meets the path made ready. Her breath walks it home unafraid. A sigh happens the size of a dandelion. It is small. It is everything. Her eyelids consider the world again. They lift like patient theater curtains. Light enters without trumpets. It introduces itself as old friend. Her gaze arrives the way morning does, not all at once. In tender layers of yes. The first thing she sees is kindness. Kindness wearing 7 hats in a row. Kindness wearing travel dust and listening. Kindness holding its breath politely. The second thing she sees is a window. A sky she knows from the other side. The third is a stranger's steady gentleness. A voice she has already heard humming. She smiles before remembering to worry. Worry knocks and leaves without entering. She is home, says the room quietly. You slept long, says the bluebird softly. We waited well, says the mouse proudly. Welcome back, says the hearth by warmth. The dwarfs do not rush her nowhere. They let joy find its manners first. They kneel as if greeting sunrise. They speak her name like a vow renewed. Snow White, says the tallest, intact. She nods because intact fits perfectly. Words visit and take their places. There was rain. There was a window. There was an apple with an idea. There were 7 who kept watch. There was a forest that remembered gentleness. There was a song that found us. She listens as if drinking slowly. She does not drink the sharp parts. She sets the cup down when full. She breathes gratitude like new weather. The prince steps 1 breath nearer. He bows in the language of humility. He says only what the moment needs. Hello, he says, I'm glad you're here. He does not claim miracle as property. He does not name himself explanation. He is willing to be footnote. He is willing to be wind. She meets his eyes and hears music. She recognizes the road he followed. She recognizes the patience he practices. Thank you for listening, she says. He smiles as if paid generously. The dwarfs stand in a half-circle halo. Their eyes shine without asking for credit. Their hands hover without taking choices. They offer water, bread, time, chairs. She chooses water and time first. She sits and lets balance settle. The ribbon rests where it belongs. The glass becomes ordinary daylight again. Outside, the orchard rustles with applause. The tree named When drops blossoms. They scatter like happy punctuation. The huntsman steps to the threshold. He keeps his hat in both hands. He meets her eyes and finds forgiveness. He says nothing because nothing is needed. She nods and everything is said. They bury what must not linger. The apple half is returned to earth. It does not deserve a story. The story belongs to breath and waiting. They sweep the room of heavy memory. They leave the kindness exactly where it was. They eat soup that knows how to comfort. It tastes of bay and survival. Laughter returns on soft paws. It sits by the fire and purrs. No one talks about kings or crowns. They talk about hinges and bread. They talk about mending and harvests. They talk about who needs extra mittens. When the afternoon ripens behind pines, they walk to thank the forest properly. They touch bark as if shaking hands. They greet the creek as an elder. They thank the hill for carrying storms. They thank the fox for running messages. They thank the bluebird with seed. They thank the mouse with crumbs. They thank the root with water. They thank the path by sweeping it. The prince thanks the dwarfs by listening. He listens to the part after the part, where men are quiet and true, where grief is folded and put away, where jokes grow from clean floors. He understands home is not spectacle. Home is a schedule of mercies. He asks no future with loud words. He offers a future with steady hands. Snow White chooses her, answering gently. Not with a palace. With supper again tomorrow. With apple blossoms placed by glass. With a walk under the tree. When? He nods as if offered gold. He can meet her where people eat. He can meet her where people mend. Evening lays out its velvet roads. The forest lights lanterns of crickets. The cottage wears its halo again. Inside, chairs remember their owners. Hats reclaim pegs with satisfaction. Boots line up like small soldiers relieved. They speak of changing the frame to flowers. They speak of leaving the glass for stars. They speak of leaving the past to sleep. The bluebird hums the prince's chorus. The mouse explores the room's new edges. Her breath is ordinary and extraordinary. It makes the house a house again. It makes the kitchen remember cinnamon. It makes the table remember birthdays. It makes the beds remember naps. Night arrives to collect its quiet. It finds some quiet already used. It smiles and leaves extra darkness. The princes of noise stay elsewhere. Here a softer rule applies. Speak the way candles speak. Touch the way quilts touch. Promise the way latches promise. Keep the way forests keep. Before sleep, she stands at the window. She opens it a careful, grateful inch. She feels the world without letting it in. She whispers a new set of rules. Be kind with keys and latches. Be brave without forgetting windows. Be open without forgetting thresholds. She closes the window with a yes. She turns and sees everyone watching. They pretend not to have listened. They have listened perfectly, of course. They will keep her rules with her. Tomorrow we'll have bread and mending. Tomorrow we'll have song and sweeping. Tomorrow we'll have orchard work. Tomorrow we'll have a walk to when. There may be palaces someday. There may be vows like bells. There will be gardens either way. There will be quilts either way. There will be lanterns either way. There will be kindness every way. She lies down and the pillow learns. It learns her breath again by heart. It teaches the quilt the same lesson. They pass it along the furniture. Everything holds her like a story. Outside, the stars practice reflection. One pauses on the window's skin. It remembers when glass was a sky. It nods at the new sky inside. The prince sleeps beneath orchard branches. He dreams of hands washing bowls. He dreams of laughter shaped like commas. He dreams of seasons stacked gently. The dwarfs sleep in their proper boats. They snore like friendly engines. The mouse sleeps under mitten cliffs. The bluebird sleeps with one ear open. The huntsman sleeps against the doorframe. He has never guarded something easier. he has never guarded something truer. The forest sleeps with one eye kind. It dreams the same dream people dream, that mercy outlasts mirrors, that patience outlasts storms, that windows can be skies, that apples can be taught manners. Morning will come and find them ready. Morning will knock without knocking. They will answer with bread and song. They will answer with a path swept. They will answer with a ribbon retied. They will answer with a promise renewed. You are safe. You are loved. You are home. And that is what really happened when sleep remembered how to wake, and the night finally set down the apple.